being inside and feeling the actual temperature and feeling how warm it always is, and learning how, I thought I was really surprised when they said they don't have any heating upstairs that like they do with all the heat travelling up, and they were telling us as well that like their bills are so minimal, and I was just amazed by that. I think as well just the how clear the air in there as well. It doesn't feel stuffy, it feels really airy and really nice to like live in temperature as well. So it was it's a lovely house and I want one.
Thank you very much, Laura, for hosting the tour today for our Shared Green Deal project. We're here for the last of our eco tours. This will be the third eco tour to post-renovation house. So can I ask you, Laura, first of all, if you can tell us about this house. Did you build this house yourself?
So we bought it we went sale agreed in 2015, and then it took a year and a bit to buy the premises. So it's 1.5 acres, so there's 1 acre here, and then there's 0.5 acre just up the field there. And so it was a really old stone house, but it was in very bad condition. So we went for planning, knocked the old house and built this house. So this house is a smaller footprint than the house that was here, and the stone that you see in the front of the house was the stone from the old house. So we tried to kind of be as sustainable as possible, and there's a little bit of pink stone from Mulranny mixed in as well, just to add a little bit of colour to the house. So yeah, it's a timber frame house, and then it's insulated with cellulose, so kind of ground up newspaper. So it's 300 mil of cellulose, so you'll see the walls are quite deep. We were really mindful of the embodied carbon in the house, which is why we went with the timber frame, but also at every stage where we could cut out block, we did. So around the kind of kitchen side of the house is all timber clad, so we don't have blocks there. This part of the house has block, and then the stone from the old house in front of it. It is underfloor heating, and we've got HRV, and we were really mindful also of it being airtight. So we done a lot of work making sure that everything was taped up and that it was properly airtight. And when we got the air tightness test done, Ivan, you might remember the figure, but it was...
Yeah, I don't know if you know about air tightness and what the different figures mean, but our air tightness is 0.5 air changes per hour, so it's pretty much an airtight house. There's no air movement around the house unless it's being pumped around by our HRV unit, which is in there. That's kind of key if you're building using a heat pump, which what we have. So we have a unit in there with 2 fans. One fan is sucking air from all the warm wet rooms, bathrooms, kitchen, and the other air is bringing fresh air from outside. It's using the warm air from inside the house to heat up the cold air coming in. You have to circulate there. So the key to low energy building is build airtight but ventilate right. If you don't ventilate it, it's going to get wet and it's going to rot, especially in timber frame house. This is all I-beams filled with cellulose. Then there's an airtight membrane the whole way around the house, all the way around, and that's taped all the way down below the floor. And then there's PIR under the floor. Had to be synthetic insulation if it's underground, and there's the same in the roof. Then 300 mil cellulose in the roof the whole way around. It's I-beams the whole way around the house, I-beams in the roof, I-beams in the wall, which is basically 2 2x2s with a sheet of plywood in between to give you your space. At the time when we built, you couldn't get a rafter that was deep enough to give us 300 mil of insulation to get our U value high enough to get our energy requirements down. But now there's different ways of doing it. You could have a rafter on a rafter, flying rafters, but at the time that's why we don't have solar. We'd have solar only for we have I-beams in our roof. It's quite complicated to drill into I-beams once they're put up, so that's why there's no solar in this house.
We use very little energy anyway, so in many ways it's kind of hard to justify the solar.
So that is blown in after the air tightness membrane goes up. You build your walls, put up your membrane, you put a hole in the membrane, and you pump this in under pressure. And when it goes in under pressure, it turns into a sponge like that. So it actually gives you air tightness value as well. So once you have your air tightness membrane plus this, the membrane also as well is a breathable membrane. It's a smart membrane. You couldn't put a normal. You have to make sure that the insulation can breathe in and out. So if you don't do that, then get moisture in it, it'll start to rot. This stuff as well has been treated to stop insects getting into it, been treated for fire retardedness, otherwise it would obviously go up quite quickly. So it's a great product.
Trying to keep with the low embodied carbon, they were all parts of the decision of why we chose those instead of choosing a synthetic like the PIO or whatever one that's made of fossil fuels. So.
Tell us a bit about how you control the heating.
So our heating is an air to water heat pump, and it's controlled by stats. So the stats in this room, stats in the back room, the stats upstairs, and if I turn the stat up to 21, it's going to turn the heat pump on.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Okay.
And that's how it's actuated. But our heat loss is so small in this house, so there's been no heating on for a couple of days in this house now,
Oh wow.
and it's still 19 degrees. So
Well, I have an A1 rating, and I lost 1 degree overnight last night.
yeah.
So it proves your point.
Yeah.
I'd say I should have a much higher rating than I have, in fact.
Yeah, but that's just what the software is.
averageness
Yeah,
of the
that's
system.
just what you're dealing with. The air to water heat pump is amazing. So we always have hot water. We always have houses running around the same temperature the whole time. It never goes that cold. So instead of like in most houses that are oil built and are controlled by a stat, you come in and turn on the heating, and it'll go from like say 16 degrees and trying to get it back up to 20 degrees. There's a lot of energy used doing that. If you keep it at the same kind of level the whole time, it's much more efficient. Heat pump will work quite well that way. It won't work that well if you want to turn your heat pump up to 24 degrees. It's going to work very hard. It'll be running all day. It'll cost you a lot of money. If you hear horror stories about heat pumps, they're installed in the wrong houses and they're probably being used wrong. Your stat's probably too high. So.
Is 19.5 your actual set point?
It's set at 19.
Set at 19, and
yeah.
you're actually over it. Yeah.
It's over
Yeah,
it.
well, the heat pump does that. I mean,
Yeah.
because of
The temperature has gone up half a degree since everyone came into the house.
there you proves your point.
Each person has so many watts, so your body heat will heat this house. Like, it won't need heat tonight after this visit.
You might be asking, what's your energy bill running at now at the minute?
We didn't pay for electricity the whole of last year. Not one bill. It was all in credit the whole time.
Wow.
That's impressive. And
Without solar.
Without solar.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Our most expensive bill for 2 months was €120. That includes our heating, hot water, all the appliances.
Excellent.
And our cheapest bill was for 40 in the summer for 2 months. So I haven't paid for electricity for 4 months now. It's still in credit. So.
Excellent.
do you use the wood burner much?
We do, yeah.
Does that
We
kick
only
in?
started using that frequently when the electricity prices went crazy. So then we started using that to provide our heat instead of using the heat pump because electricity was so expensive.
You
So
need very little. You need nothing else, I'd say. Basically,
nothing. And
in
if
this
that goes on, the house goes up to 25, 26
That's
degrees
too hot, is
in
it?
an hour. It's a bit hot, yeah, it's a bit hot. We normally burn about 4, those little logs that are in there, we go through 5 or 6 of those in a night, that'd be it. It's a very efficient heat stove, or wood stove as well. It runs at 88% efficiency, and it's also an airtight stove. So the air supply for the house, for the stove, is underneath the house. There's 2 pipes outside supplying air underneath the stove, so you're not using air from the room to supply the fire. So to bear that in mind as well, if you're building new builds, if your stove is over 5 kilowatts, you have to drill a hole in the wall to have a permanent vent. And then you lose all your air tightness, so that's under 5 kilowatts, so you don't have to drill a hole, so you keep your air tightness and you supply air from outside to the stove. Energy efficiency is amazing, yeah. Just to load that permanent 20 degrees all year round is amazing.
One of the other things that I love about the house, before this house we lived in a really old cottage, and
The lack of dampness is a big
it'd
one,
be really damp. And what was really bad is if you went away even for a day or a few days, you'd come back and it was just cold and miserable, and it'd nearly make you want to stay away longer or to even be like, oh, would we just stay in a hotel or something, because it just the cold used to be in our bones, and I used to get chest infections and everything. And here that thought never enters my head, because we know we come here and it's going to always, even if you've been gone away for weeks, it might be 18 degrees, but it's still going to be nice and warm. So it's not, you don't feel the cold that you feel in maybe houses that are even my parents' house is a timber frame house as well, and it was built in maybe 2001, 2002. But even in that house, you still feel the cold when you come in if the heating hasn't been on the fire, but you just don't get that feel here. So it's just just lovely no matter what time of the day or night, or if you've been here or not been here. It's just a really nice feel.
Yeah, the one disadvantage is you don't want to go anywhere.
That's okay.
6 degrees outside and it's 20 in here with no heat, so it's pretty amazing. The quietness as well, with the air tightness, even on a windy day it'll be pure quiet. You just don't hear a thing because it's so airtight, and so there's a lot of thermal mass in the house because the walls are so thick that it just kind of keeps everything that kind of quiet feeling. Number 3, I guess
The no bills.
No
Bills.
bills.
Thought that would be the first one.
That was the third.
Thank in particular Ivan and Laura for a most informative, fascinating session here. This is certainly an incredibly impressive house, and it's incredibly impressive what you have done here, you know, even maintaining part of an old stone structure. So anyway, without further ado, we'll pack up our eco tours for this year's Shared Green Deal project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.